Hello. Hello. Josh. Joshua. You're muted.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. Sorry to have joined the training a couple minutes late. I had like a public training that I just did and they had a couple last minute questions.
All right. Well, I have no concerns on my end. I'm just happy it's happening. I was starting to
Uh,
ask your chat bot if this was still happening today. So
I don't think our chatbot
uh,
would be that smart, but maybe one day soon as they are ex improving that technology. There were two people that signed up for this session. Um, so someone else may be joining. But we could get started without them because I was 4 minutes late. So we shouldn't delay. So did you just start with FutureFeed? Tell me a little bit about you since we're one-on-one.
I've got a client who needs to go through both a CMMC level 1 and 2 assessment, and um, I was added to their dashboard when I first joined my company, and we really haven't touched it since because I jumped in partway through this process of going through all the objectives, and then the manager that was there left, and so they got a new security person. We're all kind of going back and forth going, okay, we have a lot of tools, a lot of policies, and we're not really sure what to do or where we are in the project. So I stumbled back across your tool a few days ago and went, we should probably use that, but we don't know how. So
Okay,
I figured
very
I'd
good.
go through what training is available.
Okay. So there is a demo.
And your
Sorry,
second person
Martha.
arrived.
Yeah, Martha, welcome. This is Josh, and it's just the three of us today in terms of sign up. So one happy little group here. I'm Mark Berman, and I'm the CEO here at FutureFeed. Josh just told me a little. Martha, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're trying to talk or you're just listening, but demute if you want us to hear you. Um, so Josh was telling me a little bit about his use case. He has a client that had FutureFeed and still has it, but it sounds like there was a service provider switch or a personnel switch. So Josh needs to get the basics going on FutureFeed, and I was about to dive in and start sharing with that. So here we go. Um, First of all, the the training is divided into two 1 hour sessions. There is a demo that is available for both of you that has a little less content because it's one 1 hour session. This session is going to take you about halfway through the tool. It's kind of the setup and when you start hitting the objectives, and then training two for service providers takes you to the finish line. Um, the reason we split it up is, frankly, it's very feature rich in FutureFeed, and it's too much. You'll end up at the end if we try to do it all at once. You will have seen everything, but you'll remember nothing. So we had to divide it up, and we kind of recommend that you put a week or two between it, get familiar with the tool after training one, and then come back and sign up for training two. But situationally, sometimes people don't have that ability, so you can always sign up for training two whenever you want. So let me dive into the tool. When you first log in, you're going to get to this screen. So it's multi-tenant. So as service providers, your company will have multiple subscriptions that you have access to. Access is always done at the subscription level, essentially so the contractor can kick you out. By the way, both of you, feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'm not wonderful about checking the chat, so like your voices are better for me, but any way you want to do it. Um, so the contractor, if they become dissatisfied with you as a partner, still remain in control and they can kick you out. We hope that never happens, but it's possible to happen. And as you get more and more subscriptions, there is a certain amount of being a service provider where you have to be monitoring your clients and making sure that progress is happening. So these are just sample companies, but imagine that they were your clients. You can see the last time that anyone logged in. If you have something like this where you're paying for a subscription and nobody has logged in since 2022, both we and you will probably be losing a client at some point because this doesn't work if you let the data get stale. So it gives you a kind of a quick um, understanding of who's been logging in and also the status of the client. So if I'm looking here, this is the one we're going to use today, sample company from May. So I can look at their current score at whatever. If I want to look at level one, I can see level one and it'll change, tell me the score in level one or level two. And then the progress on getting the assessment done. Some things are measurable by percentages, like a profile, filling out sort of the fields to get going. But you can have as much technology in the at a particular organization. You could have 100 tools, or typically what we see is 20 to 30, maybe 35 tools. Same with documents. You can have hundreds of documents, or you can have 20 documents. So we can't tell you what percentage is complete, but we can tell you what you've added into the software. And then for the assessment, we can tell you how many of the controls you have either marked met or not met. And the SSP is an accumulation of all of that, sort of the summary. So your goal is to get to 100% with the SSP. Along the way, when you find things that need fixing, we help you automatically create POAMs. And then when you have pending POAMs, meaning something that is not finished yet, then you will also eventually start finishing your POAMs. And so you can keep an eye that this number is going down, hopefully, going up when you're assessing, down afterwards, and this number starts to increase until this number becomes zero and everything is completed. Um, because in FutureFeed, our observation has been that people do not have 5 or 10 POAMs. They usually have 1 or 200 POAMs. It's really unmanageable to deal with them one at a time. So we're not a project planning tool, but we're a project portfolio planning tool. So we'll get you all the list of all the things that you need to have done for the client, and then you can organize them into projects. And as service providers, that's kind of what you're selling. If you try to sell a project by going through every line item to a CEO or a COO, you're going to lose them really quick in that conversation. But you can say, we're going to upgrade your firewall and the documents that go along with it. And here are the 20 things. They're probably not reading the 20 things. Depends on the person you're talking to. But that's the thing that you're going to put a price tag on. You're going to put a delivery date, and you're going to go to work on. So that's what we mean by managing the portfolio. Does this make sense for both of you? You can give me a thumbs up, or
Yes, it
Yes, it
does.
does.
any other sort of reaction will help. Okay. So when we go in past there, Martha, if you, it's okay if you don't want to chat, but if you can hit the react button or raise the hand for a second, I just want to make sure that you're able to hear me and everything.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can
Okay.
hear you. Okay, very good. Um, so I dove into one of the subscriptions, and this is the page that everybody is greeted with. And I think sort of a core thing of FutureFeed is we're not giving you as the service provider different information from the client. I think that works in some software where the service provider is kind of a black box and they deliver reports, at some date, and it's like, surprise, look what we did for you. There's so much minutia and detail here. It's much more important for everybody to be on the same page. And ultimately, for most service providers, the engagement is not about doing all the work for them. It's virtually impossible for you to create all the evidence for all the controls. But it is about you keeping an eye on them, about making assignments to them, and sort of teaching them how to fish. And your best use in the long run is probably oversight, um, more towards the oversight anyway, rather than doing it all for them. Imagine, for example, one of the controls says that all the policies have to be reviewed every year. So do you really want to be the person that records it, or do you want to teach them that after they review a policy, this is where you're going to make a note that you reviewed it? For most people, it's the latter as a service provider. So a couple thoughts about navigation. Navigation, we invented something we call a subway map. It looks just like a train map in any train station you've ever been to, because compliance has a direction. You start at the beginning and you work your way through all the stops until the deliverables. The score, if you will, is like if you're in the Atlanta train that goes under the airport, it tells you what stop you're on at any point. To me, that's what the scoreboard is. So this is how many um, points that you have. So you start with minus 203. Your goal is 110, so we're at minus 36. It's dynamically updated live at all the time. So if somebody was making a change right now elsewhere in the platform, that would get updated. So essentially, you're just going to navigate along. There are multiple dashboards available. We have a compliance dashboard, red and green. Everybody understands that. You don't have to be an IT person. Make the red go away and make it all green. Your goal is to get to 110. Current score minus 36. When are we going to finish? Well, the last poem that I put a date on is due September 30th, 2026. So unless I change that poem, that's when we're finished. All the poems have to kind of be done. You can see your little summary of the requirements. You can see how much of it is inherited from you or from the tool vendors. And we want people to be curious. So if they say, I thought I was done media protection, I still see some red, they can click here. Now we're going from the family level to the control level. And I can see 75% of the way on this one. A lot of these are green. If what's missing here? Well, I did this one, but I didn't do this one. If I want to open it up, I can open it up in the assess area. That's the subway stop here, or in the SSP, sort of the final document area. And so you can use this as a navigation instrument. Other dashboards, we have an assessment prep center. So FutureFeed is robust enough that you kind of need to know who's in charge of what area. So this gives you a management sort of level where you can say, for this subway stop, then the corporate data is in here. Is somebody assigned to be in charge of that page? They can either be assigned, or it could be in the status of reviewed, which you can't really change from here, or it could be approved. And when you approve something, you get a signature. So the accountability is like a really big deal in compliance in general. So you can track it in here. So the assessment prep center, you can see what's going on in all the parts. These are our subway stops. The starting point, the people subway stop, you see the correlation, hopefully. And then in the critical dates area, you can set some dates when you work with the client, who's going to, or when are we going to be finished with the preparation of the assessment? What's our goal to engage with the C3PO? Anytime you check a box, it takes a picture of the SSP and it puts the score here so you can watch that progress over time. So that's the Assessment Prep Center dashboard. Responsibility and accountability is a big deal in compliance. So we use the RACI model. I think it's actually something, somebody told me it's something that we brought to the compliance market using RACI, which is a management tool. RACI means responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So on everything that needs doing, there should be someone in the organization who's accountable, and that's always one person. So Amy here is accountable for 8 things in the assessment process, or I'm sorry, in the IT governance. She's responsible, meaning that she has delegated, she's part of the team, the people that are working on 2 things. Consulted means she's available, she's an expert that's available to help with 3 things. And there are 5 things that whenever it changes, you're supposed to tell Amy that something changed. So if I click on Amy's card, I can see that Amy is not in charge of any of the controls, but she is in charge of this tool, and she's got some responsibility for Nessus and test model. And she could also be in a consultative role here or in an informed role here. And for these documents, she's accountable for a bunch of documents in her particular job, responsible for a couple, and so forth. And I can filter. If I just want to see what she's accountable for, I can look at that. If I want to see what she's responsible for, it's only that. Any combination you want, and you can reset it. There's also the concept of tasks, things that need to get done. Tasks are a little different from POAMs. POAMs are compliance tasks, if you will, or projects. But a task is, I need to make sure I document my weekly vulnerability scan. And this is something that Amy here, Amy Barnes, is in charge of. So if I click on this, I can, if she's doing or reviewing the weekly vulnerability scan, she could add a document. She could link to something where she's maybe linked to the scan itself or attached the scan. One note about linking is if you link to something outside of FutureFeed, there's a reasonable chance in the 6-year retention cycle for compliance that you're going to move that file around or you'll change the folder name or something like that. Make sure you only use linking to things that are sort of have a permanent URL. Otherwise, you're kind of digging a hole for yourself because the auditor will eventually click on that link and will find that it's a dead link. And then that really hasn't helped you in the audit process. So that's tasks. And then of course there's POAMs. So these are things related to the controls that need to get done. So you have this control, she's accountable for doing these things to get that objective to go from not met to met. And you can put some project management features, impact, effort, cost. When you open the POAM, you can adjust all that and eventually she can complete it. She can come in here and say, oh, I'm done, make a couple of notes, mark it complete, and that objective is now out of the way and it's off the list. Our score, did you see it? It just went from -36 to -33. I'm just through the dashboards now. It can be a long hour. We're 20 minutes in. Questions, thoughts, compliments or criticisms? Tell me where we stand here.
So far, I'm good. I did have a question on storage. I saw there was a file upload option. Is there a size constraint for what we can upload?
No, we thought about doing that when we built the system 5 years ago, and then we're like, nobody's storing their family photos and MP3s, MP4s in here. And it paid off, like by not constraining it was the right thing to do. Occasionally somebody will put a huge file in here, but it's not enough that it bothers us and storage is cheap. So there's no limit. I hope that stays that way forever. Martha, anything?
Nope, I'm just learning this whole process.
Okay.
It's very new to me.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So the dashboards, again, you get to them up here. Everything has sort of a quick navigation. So if you want to go to the RACI, the team responsibilities for POAMs, you can go straight to there from here. So there's like fast navigation. When you're looking at team, it's RACI tasks and POAMs. If you go to individuals, that's just kind of a shortcut where I'm starting with me because like I logged in, right? And if I want to change to a different user, it's just flipping me back over to the team and saying, essentially, pick your user. You want to know how Creighton Barnes is doing, click on Creighton Barnes, and you can look at Creighton through any of those things. There is a set default view button. So if this is like, oh, I love this screen. This is to do my job, I need to look at this every day. I don't want to look at that pie chart. You can click that button, and when you log into FutureFeed, this is what you see. The other thing I'll point out before we get into the compliance process is the getting started guide. So every page, I believe, has a little getting started link here. I pointed out, I don't know if it's as noticeable as it could be, but if you click on getting started, this is sort of the online help. And there are different sections depending on the page, but we try to make this, there's nothing flowery about the language in here. It's like the stuff that you need to do to get your work done on not all of compliance, but on the page that is in your face right now. So on this one, it just has, how to read this page and how you might be able to use it. Particularly good to point this out to your customers because they will typically be overwhelmed. Hopefully I haven't overwhelmed you yet, but give me a few minutes. I can fix that. So let's start into the compliance process. So we start with the start button. And in the start button, what we're doing here is let's say I don't know what I'm doing here. I go to the getting started. You see that most of these start with bottom line up front. This section supports the security plan, and the security plan is a requirement because of that. What do you need to do? Enter business identifiers, contact details, and so forth. Details that matter, we kind of blow it up a little bit. And the second one, compliance implications. Like if you're not convinced by now, then here we're going to tell you exactly why you must do this. And then for the assessor, If for some reason you're a C3PO auditor and you're trying to somehow you've gotten to this page, we're giving them some instructions as well. So
Quick
my first
question about that.
recommendations, yep, go ahead.
Is it intended that we would have an auditor get into FutureFeed, or is there like a print button at the end that makes a single document to hand to them?
Both.
Okay.
So originally auditors were not going in. In fact, they were banned from going in, and then they started going in anyway. So we created an auditor view, and I'll show you in a few moments how to get to that auditor view. You won't be able to get to it. They can get to it. I'll show you.
Okay.
So in the getting started, this is a training, but if you don't see anything on the page that confuses you, I'm not going to spend time going over fields that you can read for yourself. The basic way to navigate is you get to the area that you want. Think of this up here, the subway stop. The start is, this is like your city map, right? This is the neighborhood, company info, scope, contracts, data inventory settings. And then inside the neighborhood, these are the houses on the street. So you really need to do all of this stuff, but we don't want you to be distracted thinking about contracts when you're entering your basic company info. So you go to company info and the first house is corporate data. If you don't see anything here to ask a question about, which I can't imagine you would, then you can go down a little bit lower. You're a service provider. So this risk appetite section, this is a great thing for you to do in a kickoff meeting. Many of your clients, think about your relationship actually with your client. Out of this process, you are certain to get projects, right? They're not going to be perfect on day one. When you are outlining a project and you're going to present it to the client, people typically will offer them one or two or three choices. Here's the Cadillac project. Here's the Chevy. Here's something in the middle. We can streamline it. What if you only have to produce one instead? Because in advance, you say, as a customer, you're very risk accepting. And our business started in 2019. In 2019, we accepted any risk we could. We were just trying to stay alive, to fight another day, to get more secure another day, and so forth. As we have grown and people depend on us more, we made it to risk neutral. And now I would say that as a company, we're pretty darn risk adverse. So if there is a more expensive solution to a POAM that is going to secure our customers and us, thankfully we have enough money to put that in, and we take the time to do it. So I don't need to see the Chevrolet solution. I just want to see the thing that's going to best reduce risk in my organization. Have this conversation, and what you will find, and there's some instructions here too. What you'll find is often the IT people on the other side of that conversation feel like they're being judged by how much money they can save for the company through technology. So they will tend to go towards the top of this. Have the CEO in the room at the same time. The CEO is like, man, the reputation risk if we lost data, either the government's data or confidential data or PII or something like that, that's huge. In fact, my job might be on the line. So you can often settle the fight right at the beginning of whether that organization, and they probably never had that conversation before, are they risk accepting or risk adverse? And there'll be disagreement. But as the service provider, you walk in the room and now you're the person that's sort of the referee in this. That elevates you into an authority position. It's very helpful. So I would suggest that you explore it. It's not required, but it's here for you. When you're done with corporate data, go on to company description, and you're going to fill out fields again. I'm sorry, I have this cough. We were out west, and it just dried out my throat, and it's not better yet. You want to add your NICS codes for sure. It's a requirement. It helps your company eventually, as we grow, be more searchable and findable. There is a budget feature. I would skip this at the beginning. But if you're just getting to know the client for the first time, the reason we put it in here is a lot of our tool is really for service providers. And sometimes it's hard to ask the questions out of the blue, like what's your budget? What's your cyber budget? how much authority do you have? So if you know that an individual employee, let's say a department head is in the room with you, like their IT guy, and you know that they can spend up to $5,000 without asking permission, I would make my projects cost something like $4,995, and break them up into smaller projects, and you can get the um, projects approved. You don't have to use this if that doesn't make you comfortable. If you don't need it, don't use it. But it does help you get to know your client. Cybersecurity insurance, the same thing. Many of them are going to find out only through doing the assessment, and they'll really be thinking about IT risk for the first time. But the insurance brokers often don't know much about the policies that they're selling. This page really exists for this section right here, so that you can be the leader and you can say, have you thought about loss of business income? It's not included, or is it enough that's in the policy? Crisis team availability. If you've ever been through one, you do need to have insurance to make sure that you can call these very expensive incident vendors and so forth. So this is here. These are just basically leadership things that you can do when you're getting to know the client at the beginning. Locations, you want to list all the physical locations so the auditors know about it. And maintenance and ownership, this comes from the NIST template for the SSP. Scope, this is the next sort of neighborhood over. Now, we've hidden all the details of company info because that's done, right? We move over to scope, and these are things that you really need to fill out. It's part of the NIST template. If it's red and starred, you got to fill it out. Any questions from anything on this screen before I move on? Oh, these green dots. So you have your getting started, everything you need to know about the page, right? We already went over that. There are also green dots. Green dots are basically so we can have a clean interface. We put all the details because most people, after they've done it once, they know what impact analysis is and the levels of the assessment. An on-site assessment is, if DIDCAC is doing it, would be a high. So all the rules of that, it's in the green dot, and if you click to learn more, it can be very powerful. So some of these have PowerPoints in them. They can have all sorts of graphics, whatever it takes for you to learn, not about all of compliance, not about the entire page here, but only about this one area. So if I want to know why do I care about number of end users, this gives you the definition. But you don't have to have that definition cluttering up the page every time you come to this page. This is a big one, system boundary. So I come in here. This is the actual link to the template for the SSP that I was referring to earlier. So the learn mores are very powerful, and these green dots are everywhere. Essentially, if somebody asks us a support question, we assume somebody else will have the same question, so we just make a green dot. Why should we stand between you and your information? I didn't get a chance to talk about this block up here earlier. So for every page, you can assign this page. So if I want somebody, Mark Basin, to be in charge of this page, Mark Basin is Baston is now in charge of this page. When Mark is done, he'll mark it reviewed. Well, I'm reviewing it right now, so I mark it reviewed, and I feel good. Eventually, the big boss comes in and says, "Okay, this page is good enough for the auditor." So you probably do this at the end, and now it's been approved, and there's my initial. That's how that assessment prep center gets populated. If you want to see the history of how this page has evolved, you can see it right there. Cool. Let's move on. Contracts. We're still in the getting started mode. So for contracts, we need to get the list of all the contracts that this contractor has. So this is where you can put in your cage code and any description that you might have and put the actual contracts in. I'm not going to take the time to type it in here. This is probably a favorite feature of the contractors because many of them don't have all their contracts in one listing nicely organized. Why are we doing it? We're doing it because the contracts at the end have these FAR clauses, and we need a listing. Yeah, maybe I will do it. So if this contract has this, but it's not ITAR, not EAR, but these clauses are in there, and the contract itself is a FAR. This is the build a tank contract, and the contract number is some number, and the contract is starting at on this date, and it's going for a couple of years. So take it out. Contract's going to last till here. Fine. The cage code is that cage code. The frameworks that are relevant to that contract are here. And then we save it. So imagine you have all your contracts nicely organized in one place. Contractors just go nuts for this. And some guy, we didn't think of this, some guy in Connecticut who does something for submarines asked for it. And like we'd worked so hard on so many parts of our application. And then like this is the thing. It's just this simple listing is the thing that they seem to love so much. So it's here for you. So the next part of the getting started neighborhood is a data inventory. Really important part of the assessment process to get started. So you can populate a list of tools later on in the software. And once you have your list of tools, these are the tools that aren't in the upper list. So let's say this tool, Chantilly, has FCI in it. It appears up here. But let's say that when thinking about FCI, Chantilly doesn't have any FCI in it. You can turn it off and it goes down to the bottom of the list. So now you're basically telling an auditor who's interested in how you secure FCI, ignore these tools and services, but pay attention to these. And a lot of the whole thing is getting them focused on what they need to see. FCI, same thing, same general thing. Here on your first pass, you're going to just check the boxes of the types of FCI that they have. Note that you're probably dealing with defense contractors. This is the only one you really care about. And usually it's only CTI. At first, you just get a checkbox. I assume you guys know about the difference between basic and specified. Basic means that it just says you have to protect COI in your contract. Specified, it's saying this contract has a certain specific kind of FCI, and these are the instructions on how you're supposed to protect it. So whatever you have in that contract, you're going to check the boxes. Later on, as we identify which tools store, process, or transmit the CUI, the checkbox gets replaced with a listing of the tools that have the CUI. In this case, those two. This helps the auditor ultimately focus not on the noise, but on the specific things that they're there to inspect. We do have infographics here also, which can be very helpful. Just click on them and you can print them out if you're educating your clients. The last section for the data inventory is sensitive data. So we created this for service providers really because you have organizations that have all kinds of data, right? Some of it is FCI, that's the contract data. The CUI is theoretically the marked data or data that should be marked. That's the government's data that you are using in performance of your contract. But then if you're going to elevate this organization to be more careful with their data, this would be a great time and sort of an enhancement in your service to go through this list to say, well, what kinds of other data do you have that we really should be careful with? And maybe we want to treat that other data in the same way as we treat CUI. So for example, privacy information or personnel security information or anything here. NARA, it gives us a really great list of different types of data. So why not use it an extra time as long as you're going through the exercise to figure out if you have any other information that you want to protect. And in fact, here at the bottom, you can actually add more categories of information if the NARA registry isn't enough. Maybe it's something specific to your client. All of this will appear in the SSP as well. And then the last thing is settings. So just a few settings that you can do in FutureFeed. You can enable ticket integration. So put in the email address of the ticketing system. And there are a couple of places where you can send emails to the ticketing system. And this is the email address that you'll send them to prevent you every time you find a POEM from having to set a due date. What if you're just trying to get all your POEMs done in 6 months? That's 2 quarters from now. So this just sets a default date for you. Communication becomes an issue sometimes. Just inside the company between you and your client, communication is always kind of, that's the issue in many cases. So um, inside the application, when you are making a poem, you can rate the poem for the impact it will have on the organization if you finish the poem, for the effort it'll take to deliver the poem, and for the cost. But each organization is different. So to my organization, $1,000 is a small problem. In a really small company, $100 is a small problem. And maybe the biggest problem for a smaller company that they can possibly imagine is $50,000. So the point is you customize this for whatever organization you're in the room with. And if you as a service provider, it's not unreasonable that you couldn't possibly remember for all of your clients kind of the scale and the way they look at the world, whether it's by hours or by impact. Maybe they use different words at that company, or maybe you use different words. This is where you record all of that. And see this scale button up here? If you forget and you're in the middle of, like, your sleeves are rolled up, you're doing all the work, you can pop this up at any time and you can remind yourself that it's this level and not the other level. Now I think I have to refresh the page to make that work. Let me try it. There we go. But the point is you can pop it up at any time. So that is let's say that I just reviewed this page with you. If I want a record that I did, Mark Berman is the reviewer of the page and I'm done. And I did it on June 5th at 2:40 p.m. How are we doing with the start? The start meaning all the things available to you in the start menu. Questions?
Just one question. For the company info on locations, does it matter if they have remote employees?
Yeah, what I like to do with that in locations is I will create, so headquarters and you have test locations. I create a location that is called remote employees.
Remote, okay.
I wouldn't list everybody's home address that is a remote employee. That's kind of silly. But you should let the auditor know that we have, and then in here, so you have a description field. You could say 20% of our people. Just give the auditor some feel for what they should care about or they shouldn't care about. No, we have one guy in Alaska, but that's it. That would be the place to write it.
Got it. Thank you.
Is there a way to mark a location as in or out of scope?
Not, yes. So here in compliance, if I don't think it's exactly the way that you asked that, but see the compliance tab for the location, I can say that this location is a location where I have CUI. See that? So now I have, right, or sensitive data, I have physical security data at this location. And that data is not public facing, and I don't have FCI there. And we just recently added this PII and PHI, public health, private health information, something like that.
So I could
yeah,
take my
you can
remote
put stuff
users
like
and just
that.
say none.
Yeah, you can do, right. Be careful about remote users saying none, because make sure they had no way to download anything to their PC. But I mean, that's why we're doing the compliance, so you can think through questions like that. Okay. And this, by the way, this is a universal card. So I was going to get to it in the next 20 minutes anyway. So for all of the inventory items, you have an overview that it has some slightly different fields, whether it's a document or a tool or a location. You have a way to connect them to the controls. So if I want to connect this location to the control, I can type in the keyword location. And this thing kind of broadens or narrows my scope of search. So there are no controls that mention location in the title of the control. There are two that mention it in the description of the control. There are still two if you look at the objective level and the words of the objectives. And if you look at the guidance about the controls, there are, what is this, 6, 2, 4, 6 that mention it. So now I've taken this headquarters location and I'm making it available to the assessor on 6 different controls, those 6 controls. The way I like to do this is I hit it very bluntly. So notice I didn't really read. I'm not sitting here dwelling over, do I really want media access or not? I just put it there because I know I'm going to go through the controls later, one at a time. And if this headquarters location is not relevant to media access, I'll catch it later and it's one click to delete it. So I go sort of quickly. What you're really capturing here is policies is at the top of the pyramid for any business. It's what management wants of their staff and their tools for that matter, and their location. And then feeding the policies, you have plans and procedures. That's what delivers on the policies. And then at all times, like this was a location, I don't think we have everything on this chart, but that's something that you need to reference. Or you could have an SSP that you like have an old SSP and you just want to have it around. So you're kind of always feeding up to the policies. The audit, in fact, is basically the auditor looking and making sure you have enough of the required policies and reasonable policies. And then from that, is there proof that you're executing on them? That's the process. The compliance tab is on whatever the item is. This is where you can describe whether it's being backed up, it's not being backed up, if it's a cloud service, is it FedRAMP moderate authorized, and so forth. And then we have the ability to add tasks to produce evidence, really. And I showed you before, when you hit add evidence, you can have a new document, you can have a link, you can have an attachment. Did I show that in this call or was it the last call? Now I'm questioning myself.
I think you showed it briefly.
Okay. Bottom line, if I want to prove that this headquarters location has locks on the doors, I can create a document and put some pictures in the document, or I could attach the photos directly. And again, be careful of linking to something on your file server because you may rearrange your file server the next few years. If it's a regular assignment that I need to review the security at headquarters once a year, I can create a task, review security, put some notes, maybe how I want to review the security, assign it to, maybe I won't assign it to somebody in my company, but one of the client people. So I look for somebody who's at the client, maybe this independent tester is somebody who works at the client, and repeat it annually. So I can create that task. And Sam Bell, I just created this review security task, and I can see the upcoming one, do it right now, and I can also see next year, so I can look ahead. I could email it to him, but don't worry, at the end of the day, any task that I assign today will go in summary form. So I could have assigned Sam, when you're doing the gap assessment, you could be making a lot of assignments. We don't want to pound them with spam all in one day. Not spam, but like too many emails in one day. So Sam's going to get an email at the end of the day with any new assignments, and then he will get, I think 30 days before, you have a task coming up. And then back on those first dashboards that we had at the beginning, remember the dashboards? This is how we got to tasks. So we created a task. We need evidence. We need proof that he did his security review of that location. We need it every single year. So if I find Sam Bell, I'd have to use search because there's a lot of people in here. If I find Sam Bell, I'm going to find the headquarters review security here. So when he logs in as an individual responsibility, he can come in here and he can navigate right to it, and he can take care of his assignment and add evidence. There it is, review security. When he goes to review it, he's going to, let's say, attach a picture. I'll browse for pictures. I'm going to pick a picture of, I'll put a picture of myself in there. So that's my evidence that I have good security. And when I click save complete, now I'm going to sign off. Accountability, remember, it's so important in compliance. So Mark Berman is signing off that I did the security review. Maybe a last minute note. Review was great and no changes needed. It's complete. And now I have an evidence trail for the assessor here in the, I think I was too quick. I have an evidence trail for the assessor to see. So let's say he comes in 3 years and I have this annual responsibility. He'll see the June 25, 26, and 27. That's all they need to see. Rarely do they even open them, but they like that they can open them, or they open one just to kind of prove it to themselves. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. Let's go out of start. I think we got that one covered to people. We're going to accelerate a little bit. This is where you add and remove users. There is a role for a user called assessor. When you add the assessor role, you can, for all the roles, you can give them timed access. So you can say the assessor has access for 30 days. This is probably another customer of ours, so I'm not going to change this compliance. When I add a new user, we keep it very minimal. So for adding an assessor, I can add Mark Berman, email, phone number. This is a description of what the assessor will see. We're kind of running, I'm talking too much, so we're running low on time. You can read this for yourself. That's the assessor role that I mentioned earlier. And again, you can make it expire automatically after a certain period of time. The regular roles are no access. Why would you add no access? Say you want your HR manager to be mentioned as being responsible or accountable for something, but you don't want that person logging into FutureFeed. That's no access. Standard access, read-write access, everything you've seen here, and admins can add and remove users. Really as simple as that. Questions? Pretty basic. Okay. Roles. We give you a few roles to get started with, and then you can add as many additional roles as you want. This default accountable role button, I love to point it out because it's kind of subtle the way it's sitting up there. But if I assign Steve here to be the default accountable person, then for when you get it out of the box, FutureFeed has nobody accountable for anything. So now for all the controls, 110 controls, Steve is in charge. When I make a new POAM, the accountable person for the POAM, Steve. If anything I do that's new, it's going to be Steve. If I want to take anything that is currently blank and make it Steve, I hit this button, apply to item, the current default existing items, then anything that was blank becomes Steve. Huge time saver. And you don't have to worry that you get to the audit and you forgot to tell the auditor who they should be talking to. At the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, the auditor is going to want to talk to the person who's accountable. Green dots here, if my explanation there was enough. Managing teams, just think of teams as like an accelerator. So if you want to put a bunch of people on a bunch of controls, we have a populate button here. And you see we have an IT leadership team. We did the research. There are 11 controls where NIST or CMMC is telling us that we want to talk to somebody in leadership on these controls. Not all the controls, just these 11. So we've done that work for you. So if you create the leadership team, see it here, 11 controls. So I would just check it and then I hit create. When I go down here into the IT leadership team, my only job now is to say who's on the leadership team. Is it it's the CIO, the CTO? If I want to put the CEO on the team, I can put the CEO. My strong recommendation to you as a service provider, don't put individuals on teams. Put their roles on teams. People come and go, even CEOs. If Steve loses his job as the CEO, they're going to hire another CEO. You don't want to have to rebuild your compliance. So just leave the CEO on the team, and then whoever replaces Steve, say it's Julie. Julie will be on all the same teams that Steve is on. That's kind of the beauty of FutureFeed. We have this roles area, and right now Steve is the CEO. Steve's gone, and now Bradley's the CEO, and now all the teams that Steve was on, Bradley's on. All the accountable for Steve is now accountable for Bradley. All the responsible and so forth. Make sense? We don't use this team leader field very much right now. We will use that in the future, but it's kind of a placeholder almost. You're welcome to use it. I mean, this screen by itself has value, but it doesn't go deeper into the software. If there's nothing else in the people area, we can move on to tools. So with FutureFeed, I'm going to take a step back for a second. The process is to define a list of people and their roles that are relevant to the SSP. Then get a list of all of your tools and services in one place, because that's definitely relevant to the SSP, and the documents that tell the people what to do with the tools. When you're doing the controls, you're just filtering the list. It's these people for this control, these tools are relevant to that control, and these documents tell these people what to do on that particular control. That's the whole process for FutureFeed. So for tools, there's 3 categories: on-prem, online, and service providers. As a service provider, wouldn't it be nice when you got a new customer, they gave you a list of all the things that they use that are on-prem and online and any other service providers? This is almost really to help MSPs and help people or service providers get a handle on what's going on with their client. So to add a tool, when I click in here, I can hit the plus sign and I just put in, why did I buy the tool? Like, what is it there for? And what is the name? The auditor may not know the name of every product in the market, but if you tell them what it's used for, then they can paint the compliance picture pretty nicely. And then once you're in it, once you've added them, remember our 5 tabs. We have the overview, connecting it to the controls, compliance. This is what it looks like for a tool, task assignments, and evidence. A tool itself can have 2 statuses. It can be active, or it can be something that you're planning to make active. It's kind of a POAM by itself. So now I've just made this a POAM tool. So that's tools. And there's lots of different views of the tools that will help you look at them and sort of compare them. So in the management view, this one has backed up, this one gets backups, this one we don't know, this one doesn't get backups. So there's a lot of stuff you can use as a service provider here. If you just want to see the on-prem tools, that's them. If you want to see just the online tools, that's them. Just the service providers, that's them. Specific assets is something that you should be somewhat reluctant to use. If you bring too much noise into a CMMC assessment, you're going to run into trouble because the auditor can't see through all that noise to what they need to. But however, you may have a particular laptop that has a lot of the CUI on it, or a server or something like that. If you're going to reference it and you need to call it out, create a specific asset. Otherwise, you could just leave this category completely alone. But some people like to put more assets in here. I'm just, again, encouraging you, don't put too much in here, because you're just making your SSP much fatter and more things to connect to the controls and deal with. I'm going to skip the vulnerability scanning thing. You can upload a vulnerability scan, and it has a nice scoreboard to track the age of the vulnerabilities, and every vulnerability that comes in with the scan creates a POAM. That if you upload the next scan like a month later and the vulnerability is gone, it'll clear out the POAM and it'll clear it off the scoreboard. It's a nice little tool for a service provider. I think Rapid7 kind of does that built in, but most of the scanners don't do that. So that's why we created it. Vendors, create vendors for vendor management. Pretty easy to follow. And this is the budgeting tool. So you can have a budget. If we have a list of all the tools and services and we know the licensing cost, support cost, you can do a little exercise, which I've kind of talked too much, like I said. So call me back separately, and the exercise is simply you look at how much annually you spend on IT labor, and then you do a little poll. You gather the team and say, how much money are we, you force them to take the 100% pie and divide it up. And then you can figure out for each one how much labor it's getting. The bosses like it when they know where their team is spending their time. And for external labor, generally, you're getting an itemized bill. So if you're getting a bill to support a firewall and you're looking at the firewall, you can see what that is. You do it at the divide at the tool or service level. So these are all the tools and services, and then you can kind of summarize it at the budget level, and the CEOs like it. So I have literally 1 minute, and so it's my poor presentation skills where I talked a little bit too much. I haven't done this in a little while. Documents work in the same way as tools. We have a populate button. So we have a bunch of templates in here. I'm going to just make a couple of points and then I'll let you go. You can copy that. You can look at the document. Let's get to the policies. They're juicier. You can look at the clean desk policy. If you like it and you want to use it, you can, it's already connected to the controls, so you don't have to worry about it. Huge advantage from using the baked in ones. You can copy it into the subscription or you can link it. If you like this and nobody ever needs to edit it, you just want to use the template, use the link. That makes it read only. It's copying, you're just making a copy and you're using it. 63 templates or something like that in here. There's a lot of templates that you can use. If you, as service providers, want to make your own pile of templates and make it available to your customers, put in a ticket and say that you're interested in the library feature, and you can make your own documents that would appear up at the top just for your customers. So that feature is there. You can populate. You'll see that the documents, they only have 4 tabs, but it's basically the same stuff you're already familiar with. An overview page, a connect page to connect it to the controls, task assignments. I think on the documents, what is interesting to me is you can edit the document. It's an online editor. Don't expect it to be as easy to use as Word. None of the online editors are, but it's a pretty full-featured one. Every time you publish a new version, it keeps the old versions. You can restore it, and you can always switch a document or revert it back to the original template if you need to. And again, there's always a history every time you make a change. I'm going to leave you with this summary. So we got halfway through our subway map in great detail. The next thing is assessing. When you get to the first control, which I don't recommend that you do 3.11, I would say when you're first working with the client, take something easy like this one. This is where the training picks up in training 2. You start, you don't know the status of it. Here's a little summary that you write. You can say met or not met, but already populated because of what we did here with people, tools, and documents. You're going to find the RACI and you're just going to clean it up. So if you had some people in here and you don't think this is the right person to have in here, you can just delete it. You will find a list of documents already here. So you're just looking at the documents and seeing if anything's missing, you add it. And if your tagging did a good job, maybe you don't want this particular thing on that one. Well, I clicked on it. I hit the minus sign. I just clean it up. It's very fast. For the tools, are these tools relevant to personnel security? I don't think these laptops are relevant. I'm getting rid of it. And then if you have additional artifacts, you can add them there. And so your process goes much faster because it's pre-populated by the time you get to assess. And that, my friends, is the end of our time. 2 minutes over. Any last minute questions? Did I do a good job of explaining? I haven't done this in 6 weeks or 2 months.
I appreciate you going through it.
I do too as well.
See
Did
you
I
in a week.
overwhelm or was it okay?
I
I'm
thought it
sure.
was okay.
Yeah, it
Like
works for
rate
me.
me. I really haven't done this for 2 months. We hired Rachel to be our education person, and she wanted to really take it over. And so we used to do this all the time, and I'm a little bit rusty. All right. Well, I'm glad that you got something out of it. If there are questions, feel free to obviously sign up for the training too. And you can always put in tickets with just random questions in support@futurefeed.co. And then we just finished, so it's on Thursdays, 15 minutes with FutureFeed. We had about 20 people there today. Every week, it's like 20 to 30 people. Sometimes you come to those with your own questions. And I find that a lot of the people come to listen to other people's questions. So that's available to you as well.
I
All
just
right.
thought up a question.
Okay.
Do we have trainings for end users that are at different times, or are they always at the same time? As they're overlapping with some of the other meetings that are recurring here.
So the training, so for the end users are here and here, and when you register, like every other week, it kind of alternates the day of the week so that people who are always busy on Tuesdays can do it on Thursdays, something like that. I don't know where in the process.
But it's always 1 o'clock or pretty close.
Yeah, because that allows West Coast and East Coast to
Got
come
it.
in.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'll try to get the people to reshuffle and get in.
okay. Sure. All right. Thanks very much. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You
Bye
too.
bye.